Like all fan bases of major sports, Formula 1 has its fair share of conspiracy theorists, and the Dutch Grand Prix gave them enough ammunition to wage a small war against the Red Bull teams. It took just 8 hours before Lewis Hamilton had to release a tweet telling his own fan base to stop a misogynistic barrage of hatred against Hannah Schmitz, Red Bull chief strategist. But what did Red Bull actually do wrong? And how will the FIA respond to their actions? Let's find out. The Dutch Grand Prix was a relatively low-key affair until a string of late safety cars, both virtual and physical, completely changed the shape of the race. On lap 44 of the race, Yuki Tsunoda pulled to the side of the track and said over team radio that his tyres weren't fitted properly. He kept his car running and his team said everything looked fine and to just drive the car back to the pits. To be clear, Formula 1 drivers know when something is wrong with their car. They can feel it. Yuki would have known something was wrong, and whatever it was would have felt like a loose tyre. Upon rejoining though, he was told to stop the car immediately and retired from the race, with what has been confirmed to be a broken differential. Conspiracy theories have spread like wildfire online, given Tsunoda's eventual stoppage sparked a virtual safety car that allowed Max Verstappen to pit and retain the lead of the race, instead of dropping behind the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, who was trying to make a one-stop strategy work. Yuki later described it as, like I was drifting all the straight, counter-steering all the straight. That is why I didn't feel like it was normal. On his way back to the pits following the initial stop, he said to the team that the problem could be something to do with the diff. The team couldn't see anything in their data at the time, but once he left the pit again, the team radioed him to stop, but specifically said to not stop in the pit lane exit, as it was too tight. If you block the pit exit, then the safety car and medical car cannot get out onto track. So if there's an actual crash and Yuki had stopped in the pit lane exit, then the designated first responders wouldn't have been able to get on scene. The whole incident was completely bizarre, and the Sky Sports coverage wasted no time in looking in depth at the incident and how it could have affected the race, essentially kick-starting the conspiracy theory brigade into action. Just because AlphaTauri had a problem which benefited Red Bull does not mean that the two work together. That would be even more outlandish than Renault's Crashgate controversy of 2008 that very nearly destroyed the sport of F1. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff couldn't quite believe what had happened. Tsunoda stopping on track, restarting, coming back with no seatbelts on, starting the car up again and breaking down half a lap later, speechless. Wolff has called for an investigation, but not into how the incident may have been a collusion between the two teams. He was more worried about the safety of Yuki Tsunoda and the other cars on track, because having a slow-moving car with a poorly fitted seatbelt driving around an F1 track is incredibly dangerous. The craziest thing about these conspiracy theories is that none of them address the fact that there isn't any motive for the two teams colluding. Red Bull have as good as won the Constructors' Championship, and Max Verstappen has as good as won the Drivers' Championship. This is an Abu Dhabi 2021 when everything was still on the line. Not that it will settle the minds of anyone who believes these theories, but the FIA has said they won't be investigating potential cheating between AlphaTauri and Red Bull. In 2021, when Nicholas Latifi received a vile amount of online abuse from a small selection of Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton fans who believed he'd purposely crashed to help Red Bull win. Those same fans are now directing their hatred at the Red Bull chief strategist Hannah Schmitz, who they decided orchestrated the entire thing. It is this type of behaviour that's given the 7-time world champions fanbase such a bad name, and has led to Lewis having to make a second public apology on behalf of his fans in just over 9 months. The tweet released by Team LH and retweeted by Lewis says, "We 100% understand everyone's emotions are high right now. No one expected the race to unfold that way when we were so close to a win. But it is important to us that we continue to spread love and empathy towards the hardworking teams in the paddock, whether our team or others, but especially the women." The first part of the statement is such an important message that the portion of the fanbase who spread this filth online seem to forget. Lewis's entire brand is about loving one another and being kind to one another. Proliferating this hatred against other teams and competitors online is completely at odds with Lewis's own belief system. So why do they do it? Let us know your thoughts on that down below. The statement continues by saying, "The language and hateful comments directed at Red Bull's head of strategy Hannah Schmitz is intolerable and should not be condoned. This sport is cutthroat, and you have to be ready for absolutely anything, and that's what she did today. She's been a regular highlight in Red Bull season this year, and it is terrible that a portion of the fanbase thinks this behavior is acceptable. Moving away from the terrible state of F1 Twitter though, let's look at what is actually going to happen to Yuki Tsunoda. Unfortunately for the AlphaTauri driver, he's going to be starting from the back of the grid in Monza, thanks to the punishment the FIA are going to dish out. The team were put under investigation for allegedly sending him out with the car unable to run safely. Under Article 34.14 of Formula 1 sporting regulations, cars being released from the pit lane cannot be in an unsafe condition. This means, for example, they can't have one tyre not fitted properly, which is what Yuki thought was wrong originally. The FIA found that the car was safe when it left the pits. They found the problem with Yuki's car was with the differential, so the car was safe when it left the pits. Tsunoda himself was found culpable of non-driving offence, instead of the team breaking any rules though. Tsunoda was given his 5th reprimand of the season for driving with loosened seatbelts during the Dutch Grand Prix. He loosened them when he first stopped on the track side, thinking he was going to need to get out of the car. As he arrived in the pits, Tsunoda told his team his belts needed to be tightened. He subsequently returned to the circuit, stopped on track and retired. This prompted the investigation by the stewards. After a pit stop of car 22, Tsunoda, the driver stopped the car due to the fact that he felt a wheel being not properly fitted, the stewards explained in a statement. The investigation by the stewards led to the conclusion that in fact there was a problem with the differential. Therefore, the car was not in an unsafe condition when released from its pit stop position. However, during the hearing, the driver admitted that after stopping on track, he was ready to abandon the car and started to loosen the safety belt without unlocking it. After that, he travelled back to the pits where the mechanics refastened the belts. It is not possible to determine exactly to which degree the seatbelt had been loosened by the driver. They gave Yuki a reprimand for loosening his seatbelt, which is normally just a slap on the wrist and a telling off from the stewards. But as it was his 5th of the season, he has to suffer a 10-place grid penalty in Monza. AlphaTauri might use it as an opportunity to fit one last engine for the season to the young driver's car, so maybe it isn't the end of the world for Tsunoda. The big issue here though isn't with Tsunoda getting a penalty or Lewis Hamilton losing a race, it's the way some of the fan base behaves. When it happens at tracks, in person, it's easy for the authorities to remove people from the stands or search them for flares, or the collective crowd to call people out for their behaviour. An example of this was actually seen at the Dutch GP when a fan who threw a flare on the track was instantly turned on by the rest of the grandstand he was in and handed over to the authorities. Unfortunately though, these same actions cannot be taken online, where in the exceptionally rare case that someone is banned, they can just create a new account to spread their hatred again. Hopefully, people will find some sense eventually and realise all they are doing is hurting their own image and the image of their idol. What are your thoughts on the conspiracy theorists that caused Lewis Hamilton to release a statement? And what can be done to make the fan base more inclusive of each other? Let us know your thoughts down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.